Good morning, everybody. Many of us are here again to hear 4 Shilling Short, our wonderful musical duo, Christy Martin and Ayog. Some of you have already heard this story, but I will repeat it, that I heard them at the library some years ago and have been on their email list ever since, looking longingly at their tours and their tours in Ireland and then their US tours. And I just never saw them coming east enough to be in Iowa. So I was thrilled when I got the email this year to see that they were coming to Iowa. So, and they didn't have a concert this weekend. I could not believe it. So I contacted them and asked if they could do a concert here, and we just all had our fingers crossed that it would all work out, and it was wonderful. So we have Christy and Ayog, 4 Shilling Short. Christy is originally from San Diego, and Ayog is from County Cork in Ireland. So let's give them a big hand.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Tegan Moline, and I serve on the Fellowship Board of Directors. And I want to thank you all for being here today, and thank you for that beautiful music to start off our morning. And welcome any visitors who are here this morning. We have a full house this morning. It's nice to see. If you'd like more information about the Fellowship, please visit the welcome table in the fireside room and sign our virtual guest book. You can do that in the fireside room or online at uufames.org/guestbook. Whether joining us from home or here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for Coffee Fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. This morning at 11:30, down in room 3 or on Zoom, and you can find the link on the calendar at the UUFA website, the board is hosting a Q&A session for the upcoming bylaws changes. So if you have questions about that, please show up. There will be future sessions as well, which has been publicized through the emails. So this is just the first. So if you can't make it today, there will be other sessions in the future. On behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, and renewal and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Central Iowa and beyond. My name is Reverend A.J. Galazin. I'm your interim minister, and my pronouns are he and his. We're so glad that you have joined us here this morning. Exciting news for me. I saw a groundhog in our parking lot this week. I don't think I've ever seen a groundhog before. It must be spring on the way. It stood up on its back legs like a prairie dog. I love Iowa. This has been a busy weekend here at the Fellowship. Yesterday we had our religious education roundtable and a wonderful concert from 4 Shillings Short. Thank you to all the volunteers that helped make it happen, including the concert committee, Carol Crosby, Jan Cook, and Kitty Fisher. And Kitty really was the driving force. Thank you so much, Kitty. Wonderful. And I heard through the grapevine that Sam Ossie was very important yesterday. He helped with the religious education roundtable. He was here at 9 a.m. yesterday morning, and then he was here for the whole concert and was helping out. So an unsung hero no more, Sam Ossie. Yay. And he's here now again today, too. So I did the Ancestry DNA test a few years ago, and I was really surprised to find out I'm 1% Irish. And yesterday I felt the most Irish of my whole life. So thank you so much. This fellowship continues to make new investments in multi-platform communication strategies. We are all learning together. And if you are joining us on Zoom this morning, please stay connected after the service. I will run down to my office and meet with you online. We always like to keep in contact with our beloved community. Our opening words are from Soren Bird. I opened my laptop, waiting for our service to start, seeking connection to the interdependent World Wide Web of which we are a part. The love from the congregation holds us tight, received through a series of circuits, lights, and megabytes. Our congregation and love from across the nation beamed into my living room. Power, hope, faith, and belonging, all delivered via Zoom. At home, I miss the steam from the coffee, the hands on my shoulder, the, "Excuse me, could I get by?" And the fussy babies who cry. Are there any fussy babies in the house? Yet when this chalice is lit, the lights turn on in our souls. We light this chalice for those gathered here, wherever you may be. Will you rise now in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 163?
Okay. Hi, everybody. All the papers. There we go. So today's Time for All Ages is from parts of a book called Aldo Leopold's Shack, Nina's Story. So Aldo Leopold was the dad and Nina was the daughter. Can you imagine buying a piece of land because it had been destroyed and then abandoned by the previous owner? That is just what Nina's father and mother, Aldo and Estella Leopold, did when they bought a farm along the Wisconsin River near Baraboo, Wisconsin in 1935. The farmhouse had burned down and only one building remained, an old chicken coop, which they called the shack. They worked to clean it up and to build a bunkhouse where they could sleep. The stories in Aldo's book, The Dad, a Sand County Almanac and sketches here and there, tell how the family all worked together to bring the land back to health. As they worked, they learned much about the land. They planted trees, prairie grasses, and flowers. Every weekend, they came from their home in Madison, Wisconsin, to their shack. They played and sang together, learned the names of birds, and watched the plants grow. To them, learning about the land soon became loving the land. So this is back in time before they actually moved up to the shack. So from Nina's point of view, around the supper table one winter evening, Father, Aldo, said, "Mother and I have found an 80-acre farm in the Sand Counties of central Wisconsin. We'll be taking a trip up there tomorrow." There was a hush in the room. Would anyone like to come along? Nina, her three brothers, Starker, Luna, and Carl, and her sister Estella all chimed in, "We would." Would you all like to go to visit an 80-acre farm? No. That's okay. Don't have to. So even their dog Gus barked excitedly. The next day was bright and cold. Mother packed a picnic lunch, and everyone, including Gus, scrambled into the Leopold's little car. Dad turned in at an old gate guided the car down a windswept driveway lined with elms. And at the end of the lane, Nina hopped out, only to stop, frozen in her tracks. She saw a desolate wasteland. Corn stubble and cocklebur poked at her feet. What a grim and awful-looking place, she thought. This land is a disaster. But her dad suddenly said, I wonder which plants and animals were here before the farmer. And then he added, I think if we work together, we can restore this worn-out farm. Despite the cold, Nina warmed up to his ideas, and she began to sense the history of the place and knew her dad would have important plans for its future. During a walk that afternoon, when the sun dipped low in the west, Nina discovered fresh fox tracks in the snow along the frozen banks of the Wisconsin River. Chickadees whistled the last of the day's friendly calls. During the next few years, the Leopolds worked hard at the shack. Everyone pitched in to make changes so they could live there while they worked. Carl and Starker designed an outhouse because chicken coops don't come with bathrooms, just in case you didn't know. So they designed an outhouse, and their father purchased lumber in nearby Baraboo because they wanted to build it right away. For other building projects, Nina's family ventured upriver in warmer weather, gathering stray pieces of lumber heaved up on shore once the winter ice melted. We need to float these downriver to the shack, their dad said. So Nina, her brothers, and her sister all gleefully jumped into the river and rowed atop the wooden bundles floated back down to the shack. Suddenly, 15 Canada geese flew low over the river. The Leopold children let out a whoop, and the geese honked back. There we go, thank you. Dad fashioned a split piece of wood into an outside bench. It would become one of his favorite places to sit. There he would organize and review his field notes at the end of the day. Then he would enter the notes into the shack journals. The family's hard work transformed the land. The thousands of trees they planted have grown to maturity. The prairies they restored have flourished. The diversity of plant and animal species has greatly expanded. Visitors today can still see the unassuming shack. The Wisconsin River, in all of its moods, steadily flows onward past the preserve, and wind whistles through the now towering pines, calling, "Welcome, welcome to you all." So thank you all, and now we will sing the children out to their classes with this little light of mine.
Will you join me now in a time of prayer and meditation? And our meditation this morning comes from Reverend Sophia Betancourt. Wade in the water, children. God's gonna trouble the water. I laughed along the low tide line at Stinson Beach, searching for absent sand dollars among the broken bits of shell lining the shore. Remembering myself and whose spoils I was searching for, I approached the Pacific, risking a tongue lashing from her wet, roiling waters. Touching hand from heart to water, returning to heart, I made signs of reverence, no longer struggling to stay dry. I heard the rippling waves of her laughing voice, mocking my frustrated searching, amusement ripe in my failure. Come into my waters, she purred. Allow me to shape you, and you may gather my gifts. Shape me? Would my jagged edges soften like the finest beach glass? Or would I be ground into dust, scattered among my brethren in the dunes? Wading in her waters left me transformed in just moments. My boots became soggy. Pants pushed above my knees, completely saturated, no matter how I rolled them. And she showered me in sand dollars, a basket full. I spent an hour in those waters. Leaving Stinson Beach with the color high in my cheeks, pants wet to mid-thigh, hair blown in every direction, the unneeded pieces of myself crumbled up, riding grittily in the spaces between my toes. Like a conch shell held close to the ear, the waves' song still sings in the open vessel of my being. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade. Amen.
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and caring community where our sorrows are lessened. In our weekly tradition, we now have a time to share joys and sorrows and milestones with each other. First, if you want to share in person, you can come up to the mic here in the center and share your name and your joy or sorrow. And then we'll move over to our Zoom community as well. I will light a candle for each thing shared. Please don't share announcements. Well, I'm going to light this very final candle. I guess I'm happy that everyone ended up being, that there's nobody else because I only have this one candle left. That's where I'm trying to go. It doesn't work sometimes. So I will light this final candle to remember everyone who has spoken and all of us who hold items in our heart we chose not to share today, knowing that this community will surround and enfold us. Now we can have a moment of silence.
Our reading this morning is an excerpt from a Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold from the section titled The Land Ethic. An ethic, ecologically, is a limitation on freedom of action in the struggle for existence. An ethic, philosophically, is a differentiation of social from antisocial conduct. These are two definitions of one thing. The thing has its origin in the tendency of interdependent individuals or groups to evolve modes of cooperation. The ecologist calls these symbioses. Politics and economics are advanced symbioses in which the original free-for-all competition has been replaced in part by cooperative mechanisms with an ethical content. The complexity of cooperative mechanisms has increased with population density and with the efficiency of tools. It was simpler, for example, to define the antisocial uses of sticks and stones in the days of the mastodons than of bullets and billboards in the age of motors. All ethics so far evolved rest upon a single premise, that the individual is a member of a community of interdependent parts. The land ethic simply enlarges the boundaries of this community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively, the land. This sounds simple. Do we not already sing our love for and obligation to the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yes, but just what and whom do we love? Certainly not the soil, which we are sending helter-skelter downriver. Certainly not the waters, which we assume have no function except to turn turbines, float barges, and carry off sewage. Certainly not the plants, of which we exterminate whole communities without batting an eye. And certainly not the animals, of which we have already extirpated many of the largest and most beautiful species. A land ethic, of course, cannot prevent the alteration, management, and use of these resources, but it does affirm their right to continued existence. And at least in spots, their continued existence in a natural state. In short, a land ethic changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of the land community to plain member and citizen of it. It implies respect for fellow members and also respect for the community as such. In human history, we have learned, I hope, that the conqueror role is eventually self-defeating. Why? Because it is implicit in such a role that the conqueror knows just what makes the community tick and just what and who is vulnerable, valuable, and who and what is worthless in community life. It always turns out that he knows neither. And this is why his conquests eventually defeat themselves.
We will now give and receive our offering. Please know that this morning and during March, half of the non-pledge offering will be donated to the Ames Community School District's Hope Pantry, selected by our high school youth group. This resource is available to all students across the entire district, providing food and clothing donations to those in need. Recipients of the pantry also connect with student and family advocates, gaining access to other community resources. The other half of the offering will support programs here in our fellowship that make this a community of transformation. We'll pass the basket here in Fellowship Hall, but for those of you at home, you can visit uufames.org/give to make your contribution today. And if you are visiting today, please know that your presence here is gift enough. And now we'll listen also to 4 Shillings Short.
Let us bless the imagination of the earth, that knew early the patience to harness the mind of time, waited for the seas to warm, ready to welcome the emergence of things dreaming of voyaging among the stillness of land. And how light knew to nurse the growth until the face of the earth brightened beneath the vision of color. When the ages of ice came and sealed the earth inside an endless coma of cold, the heart of the earth held hope, storing fragments of memory, ready for the return of the sun. Let us thank the earth that offers ground for home and holds our feet firm to walk in space open to infinite galaxies. Let us salute the silence and certainty of mountains, their sublime stillness, their dream-filled hearts. The wonder of a garden, trusting the first warmth of spring, until its black infinity of cells becomes charged with dream. Then the silent, slow nurture of the seed self, coaxing it to trust the act of death. The humility of the earth that transfigures all that has fallen of outlived growth. The kindness of the earth, opening to receive our worn forms into the final stillness. Let us ask forgiveness of the earth for all our sins against her, for our violence and poisonings of her beauty. Let us remember within us the ancient clay holding the memory of seasons. The passion of the wind, the flowing sea of water, the warmth of fire, the quiver touch of the sun and shadowed sureness of the moon. That we may awaken to live to the full the dream of the earth, who chose us to emerge and incarnate its hidden night in mind, spirit, and light. Let us bless the imagination of the earth.
Our guest speaker today, Dr. Irv Kloss, needs no introduction from any of you. He's been a member of this fellowship since January 1976. That's 47 years. And Irv served as president in 1982. Irv worked as a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. He has served on numerous boards and organizations involved with sustainability and conservation, and was named Professor Emeritus of Animal Ecology at Iowa State University in beautiful Ames, Iowa. In his spare time, Irv led the community-wide effort to establish Ada Hayden Heritage Park, and I've been there. It's a blooming oasis for both human and non-human species. Dr. Kloss's contributions to Ada Hayden Heritage Park are remarkable. Ames Park and Recreation Director Keith Abraham said, his knowledge and passion for conservation has led to what the park is today. And we are very happy to welcome Dr. Irv Kloss to our service this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you invited me to talk about my lifetime hero, Aldo Leopold. Leopold was born in Burlington, Iowa in 1887, and grew up there and went to public schools until he was in his teens. And then he was sent by his parents to a prep school in New Jersey, and about the age of 14 or 15. And there he went to attended Lawrence Prep and then graduated from there and went on to Yale University, where he got a degree in forestry and a master's degree in forestry. And after graduation, he joined the U.S. Forest Service, which was a brand new agency at that time. And he went out to New Mexico. And there he was put in charge of a lot of things, but mainly habitat restoration, but also he thought that killing large predators would be a way to increase game species. And so he was all for killing all the wolves and all the mountain lions and anything that killed game. Well, that turned out to be, in his lifetime, he reversed that 180 degrees. He really understood better after years of that work out in New Mexico. But while he was there, it was interesting, he learned to love a woman by the name of Estella. And she was a member of a Hispanic family that had been in New Mexico for a long time, decades, because they had received a Spanish land grant and they went there to live and work. But Estella and Aldo were married at the blessing of her family. And he continued to work out there until the mid-20s. And then he got a transfer by the Forest Service to the Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin. And he came there with his family, bought a house, and became a full-time member of that lab. But after a while, he got tired of it. And so he was interested in game management. He wrote a book called Game Management that became a classic textbook for many years. And he then I lost my place. He decided to quit that job with the laboratory, and he joined the faculty of the University of Wisconsin in the new Department of Wildlife Biology. And he continued to work there for his lifetime. But during that time, he got interested in restoring rundown farms. And he went up to Baraboo, Wisconsin, north of Madison, and bought a rundown Sand County farm that he began to plant trees on, mainly pine trees. And over the period of 20 years, he and his family planted 40,000 trees, pine trees. And they would go up there every weekend. He had 5 children by that time. And they all became scientists, by the way. And he was up there one day when a grass fire got loose from a neighbor. And he went over to help put the fire out. And he stressed himself and died of a heart attack in 1947. By that time, he had written the Sand County Almanac, intended for publication, but he learned that before that he was turned down, rejected from publishers in the United States. So after his death, his son Carl, an older son, took charge of that manuscript and sent it to the Oxford University Press, where it was published. And now it's been republished and reprinted in 13 different languages. And it's still a monumental work from the standpoint of the land ethic particularly, but also from his writings of nature and how his family enjoyed the nature in Sand County. So it's been a long term, and I first got introduced to Aldo Leopold when I was a freshman in college, because my major advisor, William Elder was his name, was married to his daughter Lena. And he taught an introductory course in wildlife conservation, which was my curriculum. And Bill Elder told us all about his life with Leopold and his daughter, his wife Lena, and he went to I went to the course thinking I knew everything about these things that he was talking about in the beginning, because I grew up on a farm in eastern Missouri, and I kind of at that time didn't register with me how important that book was. It wasn't until I think I was graduated from graduate school and began to think about these things as a teacher when I was teaching graduate students at Iowa State University. And the land ethic particularly came into my attention, and I really feel that you can read that several times and still not grasp everything that Leopold said back in those days. So I've had a lot of connections with Leopold since then because I visited the Leopold Shack up in Barapoo. It's sort of like a mecca, you know, conservationists go there and because it's a historical site. In fact, it is on the National Historical Register. And I have visited there and just sat on a Leopold bench and meditated about the what he said in the Sand County Almanac. But it gives you an aura of when you sit there by yourself and meditate before the shack, something happens, and I come away refreshed and feeling good. And later on, I had the opportunity to take a course called the Leopold Leadership Course, and I attended that one summer at the Leopold Foundation, and learned a lot more about Leopold and his writings. And the Sand County Almanac is just one of his writings. He's written a number of things, and so it's a long connection. And in about 2014, the Leopold Foundation decided to make a documentary of his life, and it's called Greenfire. And they produced a DVD that's about an hour and 20 minutes, I think it is. And it's we showed it here at the fellowship at that time when it was new, and I think everybody enjoyed it. I went around and showed it to groups, conservation groups around the state. I think I showed it 17 times and enjoyed it every time. It's such a great documentary. And his biographer, Kurt Mine, was the producer of that film. And I urge you to see it if you can. You can still buy the DVD from the Leopold Foundation. I think it's for $20, very reasonable. So you see, I've had a long time connection with Leopold, particularly in my professional years. And I worship him. He's a very important man in my life and his profession. So thank you for listening. Oh, I wanted to share something about Leopold when he was west, in those days when he was advocating for predator control. And they would kill, dozens of wolves and mountain lions as sport, but also thinking that these were going to be a boon for the game species, deer, for example, and elk. And he went back to the Southwest after he moved to Wisconsin for a visit, and he found out that the trees, the pine forest on the Kaibab Plateau, which is on the north side of the Grand Canyon, had been overgrazed so badly that the trees had no foliage for as high as a deer could reach. And he thought about this for many, many years, and he eventually wrote an essay called about the mountain. And he said the mountain was once afraid of the wolves and the mountain lions, but he said now they're afraid of these predators from the standpoint that they damage the forest. And so he changed his mind entirely and began to think about this ecological aspect and the aesthetics and the ethics of what we're doing as game managers. So that was an important lesson that Leopold taught himself. And the incidents of the Kaibab Plateau has been written and rewritten several times, and some biologists have disputed what he said, and others have said, yes, he was absolutely right. I'm in the group that thinks that he was right and that had learned a lesson. And we have gained from that for many years in the game management field. So thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Irv, for sharing your perspectives with us. And Irv is not done today. He will be reading in person at the annual Ames Reads Leopold event this afternoon at 1:30 at the Ames Public Library. And the program is available both in person and on Zoom. Will you rise now and body your spirit for our closing hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Closing words are from Reverend Melissa James, a member of BLUE, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. We come alive in the dark womb that is the universe. We are called into being by dark forces that cannot be seen. We are manifested from the dark soil of the earth. There is wordless music dancing beneath the dark tones of our bodies. There are unspeakable truths echoing throughout the dark recesses of our minds. There are powerful revelations to be discovered in the dark nights of our souls. Remember that whatever we hide from ourselves may feed the dark monster that disguises our innermost fears. Believe that whatever we seek within ourselves may fuel the dark horse that chases after our wildest dreams. And know that whatever we name about ourselves may illuminate the dark secret that confesses our true natures. Go now in peace with our musical guests.
Well, this is a song that talks about how every action we take to make the world a better place, no matter how small or large, really does matter. Just like Aldo Leopold, he fixed the land, and to this day, his legacy is felt. So like a drop in the bucket, every action becomes a bucket in the pond. And a pond fills the river, and the river rushes on. And every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop. And that's the chorus. It's a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and a pond fills a river and the river rushes on. And every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop. You're going to catch on, I know. It's a crazy world we live in, trouble all around. Brothers and sisters, if we're gonna make a difference, we're gonna have to stand our ground. It's a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and the pond fills a river and the river rushes on, and every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop, started as a drop. Wanna try that? It's a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and the pond fills a river and the river rushes on, and every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop, started as a drop. One more time. It's a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and the pond fills a river and the river rushes on, and every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop, started as a drop. Down in Alabama, a lady boarded a bus. Driver said, "You're black, you gotta sit in the back." Rosa said, "I've had enough." She was a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and the pond fills a river and the river rushes on, and every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop, started as a drop. Great Britain ruled over India, made them slaves to the goods they bought, till Gandhi took his people to the ocean. He said, "Look, free salt." He was a drop in the bucket and a bucket in the pond, and the pond fills a river and the river rushes on, and every river swells a river until the power can't be stopped. And what becomes a mighty ocean started as a drop, started as a drop. In the alleys of Calcutta, Mother Teresa lived her life. She did much more than feed the poor. She taught us how to shine our light.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We are drops in the bucket, and the bucket in the pond, and the pond fills the river, and the river rushes on, and every river swells the river, until the power can't be stopped, and what becomes a mighty ocean, started as a drop